Hello, I'm Sarah, and welcome to this week's episode of Cooking Around the World. Today's country will be Poland. Now I've got a Polish flag here, typical red and white, and I've also got a map of the country of Poland to orient yourself better. So we've got Germany, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, and Russia. So all of these countries border Poland and have had a major influence on the food of Poland, while Poland has also, of course, had its own influences internally as well. Now, a few of the main popular foods in Poland are soups, pork, beef sausage, and as well as desserts. Now, today we're going to be focusing on the dessert segment. So, Polish, a lot of times they like their cakes, and one particular cake is pierniki. So that's the plural form, and that refers to the gingerbread cake. It's actually, ironically, a honey spice cake, and there is no ginger in the cake. But that was developed several centuries ago in the town of Tehran. And in that town, people would come from all over to get this gingerbread, and they actually developed a cookie from this gingerbread. So this cookie was called pierniczki. And these cookies were hard, gingerbread-like cookies, but they're interesting because they didn't contain butter, but honey was used as the main sweetener, no ginger, but there were spices like allspice, nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon used to enhance the flavor of these cookies. And these cookies could be in a variety of shapes. In history, traditionally, they could have been knights or horses or any sort of royalty representation, basically anything that the village wanted at the time. And they are also used as Christmas cookies. So you'll see a lot of Christmas shapes happening. And especially in the modern day, it's developed as a tradition for Polish families to make Christmas cookies together and have that at their big Christmas Eve meal, or on Christmas Day, they can eat the Christmas cookies and have the joy of making them together. So if you'll join me today, we're going to be making pierniczki of our very own. And if you'll come with me, I'll show you some of the ingredients we're going to be using today. So here we've got dark brown sugar, which is just your traditional sugar. We've got dark honey. You can also use light honey, but I recommend the dark because it's going to give you more of the traditional Polish cookie. We've got spices, cinnamon, cloves, allspice, and nutmeg, which are the characteristic of the gingerbread cookie, as well as black pepper, just a little bit of black pepper for flavoring. And then we've got all-purpose flour, baking soda to assist with the rising, and then we've got all of the oil to coat the cookie sheets with. And then the chocolate chips will be for the end when you can put a glaze on top of the cookies. And of course, we've got eggs. So those are all the ingredients you'll need today, and if you'll join me, I will get you started. Alright, so our first step is to take a cup of dark honey, which was obtained from this container, as you can see here. And now we're going to take this cup of honey, and we're going to pour it into the saucepan on the stove. So we're going to pour that into the saucepan. Make sure all that honey gets out of there, because every bit is important. And then we're going to turn the burner on high, and we're going to let that sit for a few minutes. We're going to need it to come to a boil, and then once it comes to a boil, you're going to take it off the stove, but that'll just take a few minutes. Alright, so now our honey has been brought to a boil, so we're going to turn that off and let the honey sit, because we want it to get to a lukewarm temperature as we'll be adding it later on. Alright, so the next step, we're going to add the sugar and the butter. So I have here a cup of dark brown sugar. I'm going to go ahead and add that into the mixer. And now I have 4 eggs, so we're going to go ahead and add the eggs in. And one thing interesting about sugar, in traditional times with gingerbread and Poland, they wouldn't even use sugar. They would just depend on the honey for the sweetener. But in modern times, as people have gotten more used to sweeteners, they've added the dark brown sugar. Alright, and then we're going to just mix that up until it gets to a thickened mixture. Alright, so now we've got the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients all mixed together. So we're going to add our lukewarm honey from earlier that we boiled on the stove. And we're just going to pour that right into the bowl. And now that the honey's added, we will go ahead and mix that all together. Alright, so as you can see here, the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients have all been combined. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this aluminum foil here, we're going to cover up our dough, and we're going to refrigerate it. And you can refrigerate it for a minimum of 1 hour, but they recommend refrigerating it overnight because you'll get a better consistency of the dough when you make it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in the refrigerator. Alright, so here we have the refrigerated dough. As you can see, it's of a much harder consistency than when we put it in the fridge. This has been sitting in the fridge all day long, so for several hours. And so that's our completed refrigerated dough. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and spray the cookie sheets we have. Have one over there and one over here that I'm going to go ahead and spray. And then I'm going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. So that's at 350 and that's preheating. And now what we're going to do is we're going to roll out this dough. So I'm going to take some of this flour and I'm going to spread it over the surface. And then I'm also going to take, we have a rolling pin. So I'm going to take some flour, put it on there. And then we will take all of this dough. As you can see, it's a little bit of a different consistency than you might be used to if you're working with cookies because there's no butter in this recipe, because it's designed to be more of a harder gingerbread. So we'll just roll this out. You want it to be about 1/4 of an inch consistency. So we're still going to go a little bit more. And you can see here. All right, so still rolling out to about 1/4 of an inch to make these hard gingerbread. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some of our cookie cutters here and make shapes. So I've got a Christmas tree, a gingerbread man, and a star. And now you can do any shapes you want. Obviously, in historic times, they'd even do things like knights and castles and crowns and different historic things. So you can really do any sorts of shapes. So I'm just going to take these and start cutting out shapes here. And now these are typically served at Christmas. They can be served anytime, but a lot of times around Christmas, we'll go ahead and leave that and cut out that. A lot of times around Christmas, people make these cookies in their homes. It's kind of a family event that they do. All right, so you'll take these and you'll put these on the cookie sheet, and I'll do that with the rest of the dough as well. And once that's all done, I'll put those on the cookie sheets. Alright, so now the cookies are all cut up and they're all ready to go in the oven. So we're going to throw these in the oven. The oven's all preheated, and we'll throw them in for approximately 12 minutes. Alright, the cookies are done. It's been 12 minutes, so we're just going to go ahead and take these out of the oven. Make sure you use your oven mitts. Place those on the stove to cool. And we'll just let those cool before we decorate them. Alright, so our cookies are now done. I have taken them off the cookie sheet and I have placed them onto this cooling rack. And as you can see, the cookies are cool to the touch. They've been sitting out for a little while, so now we can get to work on the glaze. I've got here chocolate chips are what I'll be using to create the chocolatey glaze that is typical of these cookies. And so I have about 1/3 of a bag of chocolate chips in this container. And now I'm going to put this in the microwave to melt it. We're going to put it in for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to check it, stir it, and then put it in for 30 more seconds until you reach the desired melted consistency. Alright, so now the chocolate has all been melted. As you can see, this is about the consistency that you're going to want. And so I'm going to take this chocolate and I'm going to use a pastry brush. You can use, just spoon it over if you want, whatever you have, but I definitely recommend a brush for the spreading. And I'm going to take this chocolate and just kind of glaze it over so it gets a nice thin over the top, kind of just like you're icing a cookie, just to give a nice flavor to it. And then once that's done, I'm also going to add a little bit of powdered sugar. This is totally optional. People even add like fruit and nuts, especially if it's more of a gingerbread cake. You'll get a lot of the fruit and nuts added to it. Alright, the cookies are done, and now it's time to eat and enjoy. Got the family here enjoying the cookies. Alright, Dot with Xenia.